First thing we want to do, we want to break the lug nuts free before we jack her up. Otherwise, it's going to be harder because she's going to be in the air. Try to hit your car as much as you can when you do this. Scars add to character. Nuts are broken loose. Have to pause there for a sec. We can jack her up. Away. We don't need to go too far, just enough to get the wheel off the ground. Now we can pop off the wheel, and furthermore, going to get a jack stand also underneath it to make sure that we're being safe. Because you know what to say, better safe than sorry. And this is crusty, but it's only a caliper. It'll be fine, it's still solid. Rotors actually aren't horrible, but being that we have the new ones, we're just going to change them also. Have the brakes running clean. What I like also is the boots are whole. So the boots for the guide pins.
We're starting.
Ooh. Now I haven't tried, but I know this is going to be a fight. Because that is rusty crusty. Alrighty. There we go. Where the hammer don't work, a little makeshift breaker bar does wonders. And there we go, it starts coming off. We got one more bolt down here, same 18 mil. I'll be honest, I'm expecting a fight from it, so we're just already gonna come in here. Fortunately, I don't have any more CR or any kind of penetrating fluid. So we're doing it the old-fashioned way. There we go. So that's just a 14 mil. Break it loose, put it on the side.
Once we take out the two 14mm nuts, we can work the caliper off. If the caliper is still stuck on there, maybe the piston is still pressed in and the pads are gripping the rotor, one thing we do is we can just pry them open. Get any kind of screwdriver or even a small pry bar, put on the brake pad and push against the rotor. Being that we're changing these brake pads and the rotors, there's no harm in this. Really the only place that's against the card is the back of the brake pad, but again, it's being changed.
Now, this does not have a lot of travel, right? I don't want to leave the weight on it, so I'm going to put it on top for now. Okay, so we'll pop off the bracket and try to get those bolts out. Nice. Being that it is heavily scored, leading also the back of the rotor to be heavily scored. Now, one thing that I highly recommend that whenever you're doing this job, try to turn the wheel so the wheel is pointing outwards. You have a little bit more accessibility as opposed to if it's turned inwards, it'll be a tighter space.
Here with a 17mm, we're going to remove the two bolts for the caliper bracket.
I've been driving this car, teaching on it for the last few days, and I've been hearing a grinding noise, an insistent grinding noise. I knew in my heart that it was the brake pads. I felt I wore them down to the bare bone. I get in here, I take one off, it's nice, it's meaty, there's no complaints. On the same side, the rotor is smooth, there's no hard grooving. Only until it was that I took off the second brake pad and I saw how grooved it was. Now what would cause our brake pad to look like this? Something as simple as the guide pins. There's two, and the bottom one was a battle and a half to get out. Yeah, I like to make a little noise about it. So this guide pin didn't have any grease on it. It was not sliding in and out as it should. And because of that, it was applying too much pressure on the back of the rotor. I can even feel it here. You can see how grooved it is. So on the bottom guide pin on the caliper has a rubber boot, which took the pleasure of getting stuck in there. Doing very delicately, got a screwdriver, stuck it in there, making sure not to scar the sides of the actual hole. Pulled it out. I ordered a new one of these, so fortunately I don't have to recycle that. Okay, so let's set up the bottom guide pin. We're going to squeeze on this rubber boot. Okay, just a little bit more. Oddly enough, it doesn't go the whole length of the guide pin. Kind of thought it would, like the last one did. It's a little peculiar, to be honest, but we'll see. Now, after we have this ready, we're going to put it in here. We also want to make sure that we grease it up with some high temperature grease, because there could be higher temperatures here. Not quite engine temp, but if you're braking for a long time, say down a downhill, temperature could build up. So we want a grease that will be able to withstand that. Like always with grease, no need to be shy. After the grease goes on, the boots go on. And the boot will have a small and a big outing. The small one is going to go towards the head of the bolt. The old rotor, once you have the caliper off and the caliper bracket off, it slides right off the studs. That's no problem. And again, on the front, this looks good. It looks clean. And then we see the rear, and we see what it looks like. Alright, new rotor. Now, a new rotor, one thing I always want to do is we also want to spray down with some brake clean. Because rotors come covered in protective oil from the factory. So when putting in the clips, you'll have two different types. The ones that are kind of bigger, like these fellas. These go on the top. You want more of these sort of teeth sticking outwards, as you can see right there. And when you actually put them in, you'll hear them snap in. They clip around the front and the back. And then when I'm done, I'm just going to put a very small amount of grease right here, because that's where the brake pads are going to slide back and forth. And just as a little tip, when you have the caliper bracket off, is going to be the best time to put in the clips. You want to make sure you have the clips in there so they grip around both sides. And also a good time to get the guide pins in there. Okay, now we see that the boot's seated all the way around. And now again, just with a very small bit, I'm going to grease the insides of the clips. Easier to do it now. Make sure it doesn't get on a new rotor, because that's one place we don't want the grease, on the pad or the rotor. Okay, this guy's all ready to get installed. Alright, we got the caliper bracket on. Alright, make sure it's nice and tight in there. There we go. Okay, one of our new pads are beefy boars. So when we get this tooth on the top and the bottom, right into those clips that we installed. Okay. Try to get the top in first. And the bottom. And there we go. Once it seats, you'll feel it get in there firmly. Now we're going to repeat the same thing on the front side. And avoid getting any grease on the pad. I'm all for having the right tool for the right part. I actually had a tool for this. It's a little clamp that helps compress the piston back in, but I can't find it because that's me. So another way to do it, because there's numerous ways to wash a cat, or however that saying goes, if we have one of these guys, clamp, usually used for woodwork, just clamp it in there, get the back on the back of the caliper. And then, if you have like an adjustable boom, and just nice and easy compressing that cylinder in, we're going to push the fluid back in to the lines and into the reservoir respectively. We're doing numerous ones at the same time. It is recommended to open up your brake fluid reservoir, usually by your firewall. You'll see it next to your brake booster, which looks like this round thing. And again, all we're doing is just cracking it open, just like that. So this way the fluid does go up, because you see it's topped off as it should be. It's not going to create any issues where it could be too much pressure, it could overflow easily. Piston there. Now just remember, when we do get back in the car, when we're all done with this, we got to pump the brakes to get all the brake fluid back into the lines. You don't want to take off, get up to a high speed, tap your brakes, and figure out that the brake fluid isn't throughout the lines. Okay. And then both pads on there. Now for the caliper. And the two bolts that go connecting the caliper to the guide pins. And now just to chase them in. I'll be honest, I don't have any torque specs for this, but we're going to want it tight. You don't want to put a breaker bar on it, but I'm going to go as hard as I can by hand. Giving it a quick spin to make sure I don't hear anything obviously rubbing. I didn't expect it would, but that's a check now while we still have her up in the air. One other tool I can't find where my little wheel jack was. Okay, so yeah, tightening her down, we want to do it when she's on the ground, because if I do it now, right, I try to tighten down, but boop, turns the wheel. So I tighten it up, and now I'm going to drop her. Jack out, and with the weight of the car, it will be easier to get the wheel tightened down. Boom. I like to drop her gently.